Good morning, Lambton County Council, members of the public joining us in person and online. Welcome to March. I'd ask Mr. Beauchamp to take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. Deputy Warden Agar. Councillor Atkinson. Councillor Bouchy. Councillor Bradley. Councillor Broad. Councillor Case. Councillor Cook. Councillor Dennis.
Present.
Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Hand. Councillor Loosely. Councillor McRoberts. Councillor Miller. Councillor Sageman. Councillor Bean. Councillor White. We have quorum.
Thank you. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinabeg. It is through the connection of the Anishinabeg with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. I would ask all members of council to declare a pecuniary interest now or any time one arises during the meeting. Item number 4, in camera. I look for a motion to go in camera for the items that are in the agenda. Please, Councillor Atkinson moves, Councillor Loosely seconds. All in favor? That's carried. We'll meet in committee room 3. Welcome back. Please join me for a moment of silent reflection.
Okay.
I think the only thing is to call Leah. Of course, she's on the call.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. I can advise that County Council met in camera today for a few minutes to review a few matters. The first being to review the Lambton County Council closed session minutes dated February 4th of 2026. The second was to receive a report and provide labor relations collective bargaining instructions for ONA MGM and ONA LMV NLL negotiations. And finally, to review the Committee of the Whole in-camera minutes dated February 18th, 2026, which included a report regarding negotiations between the Corporation of the County of Lambton, Stones and Bones Museum, and the City of Sarnia for the potential acquisition and display of museum materials, a report regarding an interest arbitration award pertaining to ONA NGM, a report regarding collective agreement negotiations for ONA LMV NLL, and a report regarding personnel matters within the Finance, Facilities, and Acquisitions Division.
Thank you, Mr. Beauchamp. Item number 8, delegations. I look for a motion to allow delegations within the bar to speak to council, please. Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Case. Seconds, all in favor. That's carried. First delegation is Mr. Gary Eagleson. We'll be speaking to County Council regarding the elimination of Class 1, 2, and 3 cropland in Southern Ontario. Mr. Eagleson, you have 10 minutes, please.
Ready? Firstly, for any of your counselors who are farmers, this is what happens when you blow a tractor tire up and it explodes. It's not a pretty picture. Thank you, Warden Merritt and counselors, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I recognize that you are voted for a term of 4 years, and you have so many things to think about, such as housing, job creation, tourism, economic development, etc., that what I'm going to tell you is frankly going to affect negatively, likely all of those as time goes on. To start, I want to give you a little bit of a timeline. My wife behind me, her 5th grandfather was Jacob Shirk, and he walked from Pennsylvania to Waterloo in 1798 to look at the area. He walked back because he liked it and brought his family back in 1799 and settled along the Grand River. And he and his brother-in-law and 4 other people are on the Pioneer Tower in Waterloo. But however, the land that he so much loved is completely built up now. In fact, you have to almost drive into the laneway before you see the tower. That was only 227 years ago, and my wife's grandmother was born in 1865, died in 1970. So in essence, my wife knows somebody that knows somebody from that 1799 timeline. So it's not very long. The reason why I'm doing this is I did this presentation at the Ontario Institute of Agrologists meeting in November. And they all said, Gary, you got to spread this word a little bit more. So I've had the opportunity to speak at the Huron County Council, Middlesex County Council, the region of Waterloo, yourselves, and a Rotary Club, and soon the planning department in London. If you look at this first picture and focus on southern Ontario, that's where the populations are really focused based on lighting. But you see, most of the people in southern Ontario, we have a huge amount of population in that area. But I'm going to start first with talking about United States. From just 2017 to 2022, the U.S. lost 20.1 million acres. That's 2,000 acres of farmland a day. They now have 880 million left, but if you divide 20.1 million, divide by 20.1 million and then multiply by 5, you get the entire farmland of U.S. will be gone in 218 years. Keep in mind what I mentioned about my wife. Going forward, U.S. will be depleted by 2244. Going backwards in that timeline is like the start of the War of 1812. If any of you are interested in soils, that's a particular good report that's on the internet. And you'll see that in this particular soils report, southern Ontario's that brown down near the bottom. The green area is where really we should be putting our population growth, because southern Ontario is where we have our cropland. Agriculture accounted for 53.2% of the land base, or approximately 45 million hectares of land. The problem now is urban and industrial development is eating at that 53.2% of agricultural land. The Limits to Growth, which is this book right here, I studied in 1974 at university. And it was quite an impact on me because it was telling us what was going to happen if we didn't get our population under control. And they used a 50-year timeline, which in essence is now. And it really stated that, in fact, the end results is exactly what we're seeing today. Number one, humans as it grows, they consume more and they pollute more. Physically, there's a carrying capacity of any area. I'm using southern Ontario. And if you have a graph where the carrying capacity goes across the axis this way and the population grows, the population doesn't go past that carrying capacity. I can use the example of what you do at the Pinery Park. When the deer gets too much, you cull. Or if you have too many sheep or goats on a particular pasture, it doesn't take long for those animals to eat the pasture completely up, and then they starve. The human footprint eventually goes into an unsustainable territory. If humanity reaches unsustainable territory, it will have to move back into sustainable territory or collapse by either nature or market. We got to act fast. Well, we haven't acted in the last 50 years. And it's stressed we had to have an early start. That is the particular book. I recommend any of you to read that book. The cropland in Ontario, and I'm using cropland, not forests and wetlands and that sort of thing, is approximately 9 million acres. For every 1 million increase in population, Canada lost 530 square kilometers, or about 131,000 acres. There is a book here written by Dr. Loudermilk. It's well worth a read. It tells you what happens when dynasties collapse over the last 7,000 years. And it's mostly because of not the biggest armies that lost the battle, but those armies didn't have food or water. And obviously, it collapses. Well worth a read. Going through the same agricultural land, going out of production from 2016 to 2021, we lost 320 acres per day, and that's widely known of existing class 1 and 2 farmland. If you do this equation, you get all our cropland could be gone in 77.492 years. That's not very long. It means that your grandchildren, and definitely your grandchildren, are going to be affected. I've got May 17th, 2103. That was from 2019 November calculation. Dr. Loudermilk has this, and he said there should be an 11th commandment. Thou shalt inherit the holy earth as a faithful steward, conserving its resources and productivity from generation to generation. Thou shalt safeguard thy fields from erosion, thy living waters from drying up, thy forests from desolation, and protect thy hills from overgrazing by the herds, that thy descendants may have abundance forever. If any shall fail in this stewardship of the land, then thy fruitful fields shall become sterile, stony ground, wasting gullies, and that thy descendants shall decrease and live in poverty or perish from the face of the earth. Not very nice to think about. So what should we do? Preserve productive land, open space, and have a rural character, slow urban growth, groundwater recharge where urban development is occurring, and I'm using Elgin County where they got to put in a $400 million expansion, or the region of Waterloo where I spoke, and they're just in turmoil. I don't know what the answer is for them. And we still have to provide a wildlife. I want to give you another there is another equation. Just last year, in 2025, the population was 16,191,372 in Ontario. In December of 2022, it was 14,223,000. So in those 3 years, our population has increased almost 2 million. If you start thinking about this and all the reasons why we're having discussions about housing and developers scrambling to build these developments, they really should be built north of North Bay. That's where the land is, and it's not where our food is being grown. We grow 56 to 65% of the food that Ontario actually eats. There's another amount of food that we export. If we start getting lower and lower and lower numbers, the price of farmland's going to increase. Supply is going to decrease, because the world's population has increased from 4 billion in 1970 to 18.2 now, and going to 10.2 and going to 12.8 in probably 2050. Not a pretty picture. So anyway, I'll conclude with that. I really would like just to have you talk about this amongst yourselves, talk about it with your family. Maybe when you do your next strategic plan, put a little thing in there about this problem, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Eagleson. Does council have any questions for Mr. Eagleson today? Councilor Dennis.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Warden Merritt, and thank you to the gentleman who made this presentation. I have some questions or some observations. To the gentleman that just made the presentation, it's probably fair to say that with the technological advancements, farmers today can squeeze out a lot more production out of let's say 100 acres today than they could have maybe 20 years ago with the advancements of machinery and fertilizers and seeds that they've invented today than they did, say, 20 years ago. Is that fair to say, sir?
That's fair to say, but these numbers are up-to-date numbers, so that's already taken some of that into account. However, certainly genetic modified foods are helping, definitely. I used to be an organic farmer, and I'm saying this because we need the food. We have livestock manipulation, gene splicing, etc.
Sure.
We need it. We have vertical walls, vertical farming operation. One was on the news last night, actually, of a lettuce operation. Since Trump got in, their sales have increased 4 times. They need to expand. It's ever increasing. However, can't grow carrots up 24 stories, that sort of thing.
Sure. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Also, Canada, it goes without question. We produce a lot more food than we as Canadians can eat, and that's why we're a net exporter, right? We produce way more food than us as Canadians can eat, and that's exactly why we export wheat all over the world, and soybeans, and other and Alberta beef, of course, and so right now we produce more than enough food for ourselves to consume, and that's one of the reasons why we are one of the largest exporters of food throughout the world. Would that be fair to say?
Not quite. If you put a wall around our country and put a wall around all countries where they had to grow enough food for their population, there's only 2 countries in the world that meet that criteria. It's Guyana and Bhutan. If we did build that wall around our country, we wouldn't be having bananas, that sort of thing. There's only so much soybeans that you can do with. Field corn, we don't eat field corn except for livestock. So, there's other ways to look at it.
And you're probably aware that I'm not sure how long ago it was, but in the Netherlands, there was quite an up-to-do over the government repossessing farms. I think it had to do with climate nonsense, but there was quite an up-to-do over the government taking over farms and that sort of thing. And I'm with you. I understand. Like our immigration policies are ridiculous, and that increase in population that you quoted in Ontario was because of out of control immigration policies. So I'm with you on that. I think we should control our immigration policies. I don't think you're going to get many Canadians wanting to live. We're not a communist country yet. And I don't think you're going to get many people wanting to live in North Bay or up north near James Bay and all that kind of area and such. But like I say, I understand where you're coming from. But like I say, I was a former realtor, and I remember in the 90s and when a lot of Dutch farmers came over to this area, and they really drove up the price of acreage. I remember when the price of acreage in Lambton County was around $1,000 per acre, and now I wouldn't even get. I've been out of the real estate business for about 6 years, and it's probably what $15,000 an acre now for good land, and such. But I take what you're saying. But when you have climate people talking about cow flatulence that's harming the environment and that sort of thing. It's hard to take that kind of stuff seriously. Would you agree?
No. Firstly, land costs right now, I know a farmer just put his farm up for sale for $50,000 an acre. You
Oh,
go,
yeah,
you
yeah.
go into Mitchell, it's 40,000 or more. And people want cheap food. How the hell are we going to give them cheap food with that land price cost? The other thing is with intensive agriculture, certainly we're turning out a lot of production from those operations, but as an example, in Ohio, the farmers along the Ohio River are being sued for $400 million for the phosphorus coming up into Lake Erie and causing the algae growth. If you go down to South Carolina or North Carolina, they got a lot of chicken barns and pig farms down there. I'm sure there's problems down there. I can tell you the most common local population disdain from those operations, it isn't from manure smell or anything like that. It's from the incineration of livestock when they die.
Sure.
So I appreciate the debate.
Well, I understand what you're saying, sir. I remember going to a plowing match and a gentleman at the time, a John Deere combine was $160,000, and I couldn't believe it. The gentleman when I was sitting in the combine, there was 2 seats. And as you're aware, I think they're probably $500,750,000 now. And at the time, when I was sitting in the combine, the farmer sitting beside me said, "Son, do you understand why there's 2 seats in this combine?" And I said, "No, sir." And he says, "One's for the farmer and one's for the banker." And that's back when the and that's back when the combine was just under 200,000. So you can imagine there's probably 4 seats in the combine now for the other 3 bankers.
Wow.
So I get you. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
Okay,
combines
we have
now.
a question from Councillor McRoberts.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Mr. Eagleson, for that informative talk. Is it fair to say that we're going to live where we're going to live, but farmland can never move because the quality farmland is where it is, and it is what it is? So for cities that are dense like Sarnia, having homes that are sitting on half an acre, quarter of an acre, instead of reducing the size of yard we have that we put carcinogenics and pre-emergence on, we could actually reduce the size we need to live on or build up. But farmland, we cannot move, and if we start to grow the hydroponics and whatnot, we're just not getting the nutrients and what we need. Plus, farmers are making money selling the products that they grow and selling it all over the world. That's what we want to keep. And yes, taxes are great, but we can always build more homes and have more taxes on smaller pieces of property. And we've just become accustomed to people that want to have the bigger property and the bigger home, which we don't need, but we do need food.
That's called capitalism.
Okay. Finish.
Read Dr. Loudermilk. Read Dr. Loudermilk's article on the internet. It's 39 pages. It was written in 1939, and it's very informative.
Follow up, Councillor McRoberts.
Thank you. I would just like to say, I am trying to vote and think for my grandchildren and their children, and not just right now what I want to have. It's what we need to have. Thank you.
Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Mr. Eagleson, for your presentation today. It raises some questions, though, in terms of equity. I understand that Southern Ontario is a significant contributor to our food supply, and I do think that, that needs to be protected in any reasonable way that it can be. But it does seem that the warnings that we've been hearing from organizations and informed folks such as yourself have been ignored over the years. by larger communities. And it almost seems like it's being, that lack of balance is being supported by other contributors, such as funding for housing that seems to be disproportionately going to other parts of Ontario, Southern Ontario. And it raises the question as to whether or not we are facing more pressure to limit development here at the expense of our municipal budgets, while at the very same time understanding that other communities may or may not be doing it well. And so it raises the question for me, if you have any insight into this disparity. Some communities seem to be ignoring all warnings, and they're developing unfettered, sprawling into farmland, and it seems our community is being at every step of the way limited in urban development. And that might be the right way to go. I'm not making a judgment on that right now, but in your estimation, is there a community somewhere in here in Ontario that's doing it well, that's finding the right balance of allowing their communities to grow proportionately to maintaining adequate food supply?
Not really. I'll give you a couple of examples. I know Hanover's wanting to, what's the term? I don't want to use the term expropriate, but they want to expand by 4,000 acres. The town of Exeter at the south end, they just announced 2,300 home expansion. I don't think there's 2,300 homes in Exeter right now. The city of town of Innisfil, which is where our carrots and that are grown, they're doing a big expansion. Barrie, of course. In those 3 years that I mentioned, where there's almost 2 million people, just in the last 3 years, an expansion in Ontario, that's the equivalent of the population of Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon, plus Hamilton in 3 years. You know, we can't keep this up. They've got to go up north where they don't have class 1, 2, and 3 cropland. It's not going to mean that this area isn't going to have some expansion, but it really should go up there. I'm not trying to, like, with the wars going on right now, we're going to have a pile of people want to come to Canada.
Okay.
And we just can't keep them coming.
Last question, Councillor Dennis.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, thank you. And sir, I certainly respect your opinion. I you know, we're all entitled to it. I think there's a bit of fear mongering going on. You're talking about in 200 years, in all likelihood, Elon Musk will have us probably a colony or two on Mars, and with all the changes in technology that's taking place right now. The fact of the matter is, in the city that I live in right now, if we do not grow, if we do not increase our tax base, we will go broke. We will go broke. We haven't grown in 40 years. Our population has remained the same in 40 years. And we are up against some massive economic challenges. And if we do not grow, we will be broke. You will see our revenues are not catching up to our expenditures. And if we do not grow, we will be broke. End of story.
I wrote a couple of integrated community sustainable plans, one for North Middlesex.
Oh, okay.
And that's exactly what was running up. Like what I wrote is that they couldn't afford. They have, I forget now, 70 some bridges that need to be replaced. Some roads are closed now because they can't afford to replace the bridge. I know exactly what you're saying. And it's not going to be an easy decision.
We just can't afford it, and I think ideology. There's some people on here from Sarnia, and they have a different ideology than I do, quite clearly.
Okay, we'll end the discussion there.
Sure.
We've kind of gone over our limit.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Eagleson. Our second delegation is Mr. Rod Catford, resident, town of Plympton-Wyoming, will be speaking regarding addressing blowing and drifting snow on roads and road maintenance. You have 10 minutes as well, Mr. Catford.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm almost embarrassed to be making a submission on something a little bit more myopic than the previous discussion, which I found really interesting. And sadly, I remember very similar discussions when I was becoming aware as a young person in my late teen years, and it's a lot of the discussion then that was identical to the one you just had here, which is a little discouraging when you think of all those years that went by. Can I assume that we've all read my submission, or should I review the significant points? We've all had a chance to look at it. Yeah. So first point would be in the second paragraph, I made a spelling error. That's weather should be W-E-A-T-H-E-R, of course. So my apologies to that. About 2/3 of the way down, when I'm talking about the experiences I've had on our local roads, I had another experience just after I wrote the submission, and just wanted to add that on February 23rd, I was out and about and found that even, I think there had been days without precipitation, and even so, I was hitting small drifts of perhaps 4 to 5 inches in depth, and actually very slightly losing control in those. So among the things that run through my mind when I've had these experiences, that I'm probably driving the most winter best vehicle on the road. I drive a Volvo XC90, and I equip it with good snow tires. So when I'm having difficulties out on the roads, I'm very concerned for people less fortunate than me that might be driving a much lighter car, like a little Hyundai or something, and might not be as physically adept as I am at managing challenges. So I come at it from that point of view. I think I didn't do any research before I made my submission. It was strictly arising out of my own experiences this year. Just anecdotal things like returning from Guitar Circle Wednesday night. I refer to this when I slowed to a stop, literally, on Oil Heritage Road. I just could not see anything. That's how bad the wind-blowing snow was, right? The other occurrences are, my experiences, and it just made me aware that there's a very, very significant public safety issue here. As I was getting ready last night to come here, I just did a brief internet search as to what had been written on this, and I came up with, in the first page of hits, I came up with 2 articles, one from Nebraska and one from British Columbia, that discuss in detail the problem of blowing and drifting snow. It's a problem that has been attacked with very serious dedication, clearly. Minnesota, for one, noted that in the winters between 2015 and 2020, they were noting 14 fatalities annually and 7,000 crashes. And I quote, due to blowing and drifting snow on state highways. That's a direct quote. So I was encouraged in one respect that I wasn't, misguided in my concern about this, right? And, I've told you about, in my submission, things that happened to me when you just wouldn't really expect there to be any problem on the road at all. I go out every morning, I swim to try and keep in shape. So I'm out every morning driving on these roads. And, I've become a little bit active with Guitar Circle, stuff like that. So I'm out and around on these roads, and it really, really surprised me at how hazardous this stuff could really be this year. In dealing with it, of course, the main thing that I run to, and it kind of dovetails with the submission that preceded mine, is that one of the obvious ways of dealing with the problem is to restore the natural habitat along the roadways. Canadian yew is an indigenous plant, so is common juniper. There are a lot of native grasses that are indigenous to this area. These are recommended solutions by the people that have studied these issues. You can use mechanical snow fences, of course. A neighbor of mine said that the couple of snow fences that exist on Lakeshore, actually, there used to be more, in her opinion. I don't know if that's true, but the effectiveness of those snow fences, of course, limited by just the number of them. There's only a couple in the little area that I drive around in. So that's not really happening, and it's really critical. That one day that I discussed there were, like I say, there were 10 vehicles stuck out just on that small stretch between my place, Hillcrest Heights, and where the road joins, where Lakeshore joins Highway 21, you know. And the snowplow itself was in the ditch, and that drift was huge. It was huge, and he was down in there, you know. So what are you gonna do? You can say, well, you know, it's our job to drive safely with respect to the conditions, but what do you say to emergency vehicles, right? What do you say to somebody that got out there and didn't realize that this was going on? No, it's our responsibility as a community and as the crown in right of these municipalities to maintain the roads. And if the conditions now presenting themselves in this particular year or several years, whether it's climate change or whatever, doesn't really matter. You know, I only have one life, right? I only have one spinal cord, right? It's the job of our governments to make sure those roads are safe and properly maintained. You can drive a plow, as one of your folks said to me, you know, you can have the plows out there 4 times an hour. It won't do the job in conditions like that. The only solution is to deal with it properly, right? Get some kind of obstacles up there to catch the snow. I did notice, and again, it kind of relates back to the submission before me, that in fact, there's the drifts can actually, believe it or not, the snow, if you retain it and is better distributed across the fields. I was surprised to see this because I didn't even, before I came into this area, know what winter wheat was. But apparently the yield of winter wheat can be increased 15 to 20% just by having better dispersal of snow across those fields generated by obstacles, snow fences, and hedges, and so on. And of course, what concerns me in the summer is you also see whirling clouds of dust reminding you of the 1930s, really. You know, and you wonder, what are we doing with this great resource that the previous guest indicated? So I also noticed, for your benefit too, that one of the articles I read indicated that drifts directly contribute to pavement damage by blocking ditches, drains, and culverts, and can cause water to infiltrate beneath the pavement. So I thought that might be of interest to you too, that it's good management of the road system in that regard as well. So adopting and referring back to my submission, that's what I have to say to you today. I just would really like to emphasize the importance of us doing something about this. It could have been a catastrophic year. Perhaps it was. I don't know. You know, I don't know whether fatalities were evident this year or whether there was an increase in accidents. I don't know, but I noticed it this year. It's quite significant.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for that. And
you've done anything about this?
Councillor White.
Thank you. Does raise the question as whether or not we've, had a fulsome study, and perhaps our GM of Infrastructure and Development Services could comment on that. Have we done a study on this and come up with any potential solutions to these issues? Do we have any data that supports the need to move forward with some kind of a plan of action?
Mr. Cole, would you like to comment on that, please?
Thank you, through you, Warden, to Councillor White and to Mr. Catford. So after the 2010 snow event, that snowmageddon that we had, some of those questions were raised at that time, and we have spoken to council since that time, just periodically, about snow fencing. Our snow fencing has waxed and waned, so Mr. Catford's not right. There was at one time more snow fencing. We reduced our snow fencing and then have slowly brought it back again. Right now, we have two main snow fence programs. Now, Mr. Catford's right. Minnesota is the leader. They're the leader. They deal with huge snow capacity. Their snow fencing is ginormous, right? It eclipses ours. We have two main mechanisms that we use. We use that classic orange snow fence that we put up. We also have a living snow fence program that we work with farmers to leave crops, a few rows of crops on the field. Altogether, we have about 5 kilometers of that through the county right now. So we have 650 kilometers of roadway. It's present. We try to target areas, but it's not ubiquitous throughout the county. Over the last 2 years, we also have either through the roads department or last year, and including this year, through the Lambton County Land Stewardship Program, have the ability to partner with landowners to erect windrows off the road allowance on private property, because these solutions need to be put far enough back from the road allowance, or else they create their own problems of retaining snow close to the roadway. We didn't get any partners through the land stewardship program last year specifically to that issue, but we have erected windrows of trees along some of our roadways where we have found willing partners, and look for those partners continuously, particularly where our eyes on the ground, our foremen and our operators, have noticed those key areas of snow accumulation on the roadway. So that, as far as a complete comprehensive study, no, we haven't had a consultant come in, do wind studies, and identify those potential areas. We've done it through experience, and we've done it through direct contact with that experience on our roadway.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. So,
If I could make a supplementary remark to that, though, I'm not sure about the broader aspects of the problem. I can tell you in my little area that I traverse daily or frequently, there's 2 small bits of that fencing, and they're not being terribly effective, particularly the one by Townsend Line, right? And then all the way out Oil Heritage, which is downright treacherous with a good blow. There's nothing. I'm mindful of your remark about the land or the natural fences. There was a row of corn left there. I think it was a couple of years ago, right? But since then, there's nothing. There's just no obstacle, man. That blows, and everywhere I drive, there are big, wide stretches of farmers' fields that just go on forever, and it's treacherous, I can tell you, and I'm not fooling around when I say,
okay,
really, conceivably, could be negligence, right? Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Councillor Broad, quick comment, please.
Yeah, thanks, Warden Marriott. I think the whole thing that's the idea that we're missing here, we got way too many people out there driving when they should be staying home. I'm here to tell you right now, I'm very proud of our public works and the job they do, the county public works departments. I'm very proud of the job they do, getting rid of the snow drifts. They're out there on days where they shouldn't be out there either, but they care about our community. But people need to stay home. They need to slow down or stay home. And I know I pushed a guy out this year that got into the ditch that had absolutely bald tires on his thing. Don't blame our roads. He was not prepared for the weather conditions that we had. So I'm just here to say that I'm very proud of our public works, and that I think the biggest problem we got is people just haven't learned to slow down or stay at home. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll
I'll
end.
try not to take that personally, but thank you very much for your time.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, minutes of open council of February the 4th. I look for a motion to adopt these minutes, please. Deputy Warden Agar and Councillor Cook. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 10, Dr. Dewick, please. So we have 2 items of correspondence here to receive and file, unless there's questions for either one of those. Councillor McRoberts, and do you want to move those first and then?
Yes.
And Councillor Miller seconds. Go ahead, Councillor McRoberts.
Thank you. Dr. Dewick, can you, I'm reading, I see how many notices we sent out for children about immunizations. How many students do we still have that are not in school, or have they all sorted out and everybody is in school for high school and primary grades? Thank you.
Dr. Dewick, please.
Thank you. Through you, Warden, to Councillor McRoberts. We sent out in the report to our Board of Health, County Council, we sent out 3,000 first notices. And if those first notices were not resolved by February the 3rd, then a suspension order was sent in the mail. And so parents and guardians still have time. This is the last bit of time before March 10th, which is the date where the suspension order will be enforced. And so right now we're projecting the numbers to be around the same as last year who were suspended.
Follow up, Councillor McRoberts.
This is going to be a wild question. Since the COVID shutdown, have we noticed the same numbers prior to that, or is it since then that numbers have been increasing about getting all of these shots? Thank you.
Dr. Dewick, please.
Thank you. Through you, Warden, to Councillor McRoberts. Thankfully, we are back to the pre-pandemic levels of the numbers during the ISPA enforcement period. The first year we re-engaged in enforcement, we did see quite a bit higher numbers, but now we're back to pre-pandemic levels.
If there's no other questions, I'll call the question on the motion to receive and file. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Item 10B, Board of Health Information Reports. There's 4 reports here. Look for a motion to receive and file. Councillor Case moves. Councillor White seconds with a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. The item C, the food affordability through the nutritious food basket report, I just want to highlight the fact that it indicates a significant increase in just a couple of years, almost double the number of households in Lambton County who are considered food insecure. That's up to over 25%, which is staggering, actually. And I understand that Lambton Public Health's responsibility here is to monitor, provide the data, educate, of course. So I guess my question from that what are the next steps that we can do, either as a Board of Health, as a community, as social services, or external organizations to take that data and work towards solutions. And I guess secondary to that is, are there any organizations that are accessing this data for the purposes of contributing to solutions, or are we simply at the point where we're monitoring and in your estimation maybe don't know what to do?
Dr. Duick, please.
Through you, Warden, to Councillor White, thank you for that question. In the nutritious food monitoring report, on the last page of that report, you will see that there are some suggestions for solutions. And I would request to call on Jordan Beninga, the Manager of Health Promotion, who is involved in overseeing the development of the report, to comment a bit more specifically if that's possible.
Go ahead, please.
Through you, Warden Marriott. Yes, the role of the Lambton Public Health is primarily in population health assessment and surveillance, meaning we look to see what the current state of food affordability is, recognizing its impact on the broad degree of health. What we look to do with this report and this information is share it with our community partners, whether that's through something like the community safety and well-being strategy, with other partners like food banks. Important that we're able to highlight this information and collect this data so that our community partners have a good sense of the reality, both from a housing and nutrition and health perspective. And we work collaboratively with all of our community partners to understand that if there's advocacy that they would like to do as individual organizations, this data helps support that. And really, we mobilize in any number of different ways, primarily with our community partners, and we share this readily with them.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the Board of Health information reports? Seeing none, I'll call the question to receive and file. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Any other business for the Board of Health today? Seeing none, thank you, Dr. Duick, for your presence today. Item number 11, information reports. Under Corporate Services Division, we have a report regarding the year-end and fourth quarter activity and statistical report. Look for a motion to receive and file. Councillor Bean, seconded by Councillor Atkinson. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 12, items not requiring a motion. We have 4 sets of minutes here to receive and file. Councillor Case moves that, and seconded by Councillor Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Item number 13, reports requiring a motion. We have a report regarding tax policy under finance, facilities, and acquisitions. Well, there's 3 recommendations there. Councillor Cook, do you move that? And seconded by Councillor Sageman. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And 13B, under Social Services Division, we have a report regarding Cathcart project public consultation, and there's also a recommendation there. Anyone? Councillor Bradley moves. Councillor Dennis seconds.
No, no, I'm not seconding. I'd like to
Okay,
discuss it first.
do we have a seconder? Councillor Roberts.
Right.
Councillor Bradley, you have a question?
Yes, I just a question on process for the public. On what is the timelines at this point with the planning application and which will eventually end up at Sarnia City Council? So do we have that schedule?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, would you comment on that, please?
Through you, Warden, to Councillor Bradley. So we are working through the rezoning application process at this time. We've had our pre-consultation with city staff and we filed the application. So it's early days with the rezoning process. In terms of timeline for the project, the construction timeframe would be approximately 24 months from when we start. And we anticipate anywhere from a year to 18 months before we could begin the construction phase.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dennis.
And yeah, well, first of all, let me thank staff for actually holding it was going to be a one-night consultation period, and obviously there was so much interest, they had to have 2 additional consultation sessions. So kudos to them. Obviously, there was such enormous interest in what was going on that they had to accommodate a great deal of people. Some were, some thought that the manner in which it was held, having little workshops, they thought that was a little hokey, but nevertheless, it was done the way it was. Anyways, the people that talked to me, were adamantly, vehemently against supportive housing. Can you please verify for the folks listening at home, for the people in the media, what exactly is the recommendation? I know what it is, but I'd like for you to put it on record right now.
Ms. Fitzpatrick, please.
Through you, Warden, to Councillor Dennis, our recommendation is for the site to be used for a county-owned and operated affordable housing project.
Okay, and now as far as affordable housing is concerned, is it for a certain demographic? Is it for seniors? Is it for people in general? A litany of people in terms of age groups? Is it what exactly? What are the parameters?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, please.
Through your Warden, to the councillors, so the units would be filled from our centralized wait list for affordable housing. So in terms of parameters, we are governed by the Housing Services Act in terms of eligibility criteria of who qualifies for affordable housing and rank gear to income, but it's an adult about 16 years and older.
Okay, and also, unlike some of the other projects that have been proposed, I'll use Inwell as an example. If people misbehave, if they are unruly, can they be dismissed from a property like this?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, please.
Thank you for the question, and through the Warden. So the County of Lambton is a landlord like any private sector landlord is. We are governed by the Residential Tenancies Act. And if we have tenants that are problematic or causing issues, we are obligated to address those issues in terms of respecting the enjoyment of the other residents who live there. So we would follow processes under the Residential Tenancy Act.
And is there a list of rules that they must abide by in terms of, conduct and keeping the exterior of the place tidy and neat and just like any other place, in terms of because let's face it, some of these places they're nice and bright and shiny when they're brand new, but some of these places in a year or 2 or 3 after they're finished, they look a little worn and weathered and a little rough. Is there anything that will address that?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, we do have an existing building there now, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. Those people are seniors, though.
Anything further, Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Through you, Warden. So again, our tenants are held to the same standards as any tenant in a rental property in the private market. We would have an on-site key attendant. Our buildings are very well maintained. We take pride in our housing stock. We don't foresee any this building being any different than our existing buildings. Okay. And as per the Warden's remark, Jubilee Gardens is a testament. It's been there for over 50 years. it's very well received and well accepted by the neighbors.
Because I do know a lot of neighbors do not want anything on there. They don't want even affordable housing on there. That's the just the people that have come to me, actually. They don't want anything there. This is a prime north end location. This is a well-kept area with some very nice commercial shopping in the very close vicinity. Well-kept residential, high-value residential area, and they don't want to see anything that's going to hurt their property values or disrupt their quality of life. So there's going to be some close eyes on this one. And like you said, it's going to be coming to the Sarnia Council, and I'm sure there's going to be some further discussion on that. But again, thank you very much for inviting the community. And I'm sure there were people attending your seminar or your talks that weren't neighbors of that particular area that wanted to give their 10 cents. But anyways, thank you very much for being so conscientious and transparent with this particular project. It was sincerely appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor White, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for your continued efforts to learn and grow with the community and to provide opportunities for folks to find housing in our community abroad. As we know, we can't by legislation, we can't people zone. It is against the Planning Act to try and engage in any type of people zoning. So I think this project will serve us well. And in terms of the facade and the upkeep, I would say that among the top properties in our jurisdiction, county-owned properties certainly hold themselves to a very high standard, and I certainly expect nothing less than this. This will be a great addition to any neighborhood, and I can't wait for this to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, I look to call the question for the recommendations. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Moves us to item number 14, committee minutes of the whole of February the 18th. The first motion under Infrastructure Development Services is on an information report. Motion number 2 was under Public Health Services Division on a report on the Chatham-Kent Ambulance Border Coverage Agreement. Motion number 3 was under Cultural Services Division, information reports on libraries and things collection. And motion number 4 was under the donations for libraries. And motion number 5 was regarding the museums, galleries, and archives collection management up to December of 2025. And under long-term care division, motion number 6 was a report regarding temporary licenses update. And under corporate services division was motion number 7 with correspondence. And social services had motion number 8 on several information reports. And number 9 was under the office of the CAO to do with positions under facilities and acquisitions. And motions 10, 11, and 12, 13, 14, and 15 were in camera. And 16 was adjournment. Look for a motion to receive and to adopt the minutes. Deputy Warden Agar moves and Councillor Hand seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no items tabled from previous meetings. Under number 15 and under 16, no notice of motions. Is there any other business for this established body today? Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. I don't want to get accused of people zoning. I've never heard of that before, but it must be a new term in the PC language. But anyhow, again, I would like to ask for an update about when Laurel Lee will be closed, how we're making out on that. We've made a commitment to the neighbors. They've been living hell, I'm sorry, been being put up with living hell for the last number of years. We've made a kind of a commitment. I'd like to really kind of narrow that down. We're getting close to the date or the promise date, and I just want to see how we're making out progress-wise.
Ms. Fitzpatrick, please.
Through you, Warden, to Councillor Dennis. Staff are preparing a fulsome report for April's council on the issue of emergency shelter, including the overflow site. So we will have detailed information at that time, but in the interim, I can share that usage has remained high across our shelter system. We believe it is influenced certainly by the continuous cold weather alerts just up until this week, really. So yeah, we are intending to prepare a fulsome report for April, but at this time it remains open and we will put forward our recommendation in a couple of weeks.
Well, a fulsome report, that tells me that you're not going to make the May deadline that you promised. So anyhow, we'll wait until you report in April, but that's setting the table for bad news as far as I'm concerned. I was born at night, but not last night. But again, that's breaking our word to the neighbors that have put up with.
Councillor Dennis, we'll have to. I'd suggest that we wait for that report.
Well, Warden Marriott, put your shoes or your feet in the shoes of the neighbors that have put up with hell in the surrounding businesses. If this was in Alvinston or Enniskillen, where you're the mayor of, you would not like this either. I get calls constantly.
We'll end the discussion there. Councillor Case, you had a question.
Well, just a comment, Mr. Warden. There was no promised date. There was a
yes, there was. Yes, there was.
Excuse me. I have the floor, Councillor Dennis, not you. You said your piece. I remember.
No, I was cut off. I was cut off.
Excuse me. I have the floor. I listen to you. You can listen to me. There was never a promise of a date. There was a target, and that was made very clear to everybody. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. There was no promise of a date, so don't make a statement that's not true. Mr. Warden, one thing I did want to speak to, I wanted to talk about something else under other business. I wanted to thank Don Euphemia for helping us during the storm event we had a couple weeks ago. I also want to thank the county for the good communication as well. I mean, when you get a storm like that out of the blue, and it really hampers a community, and not just our community, but other communities as well, it's really good to know that you've got support out there from your neighbors. And I want to personally thank Don Euphemia, who sent over a couple plow trucks, a couple men to run those trucks to take a lot of pressure off our guys in Warwick Township. I know I'm not the only one that received that kind of goodwill from other communities in Lambton County too. So just wanted to say thank you very much for the help. And again, it's nice to know we're from a rural community where people pitch in to help each other when times are tough. So thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Councillor Case. One last quick comment, Councillor Dennis.
There most certainly was a promise. It was made by Valerie when she was still with the county. It was a strong commitment. Councillor Bradley started it, or I'm sorry, he first announced it, or it was a commitment to him. I followed up a number of times. From what I understand, I believe Mr. Tony is in the audience, and he can elaborate. He's been meeting with them time and time again. This would not happen in the private sector. This would not happen in the private sector. Only in government.
Councillor Dennis, we've had the discussion, and I said if we wait till the report comes in April. It wasn't a very extended cold winter, and people can't be left out.
Yeah.
So, any other?
Why don't you send them to Enniskillen then, and see how you're
Place.
Out of order.
Okay. Any other business before I move on? Seeing none, I move to Mr. Beauchamp for notice of bylaws, please.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. It is moved by Councillor Sageman and seconded by Councillor Veen that bylaws numbers 6 through 9 as circulated be taken as being read a first and a second time.
All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Veen and seconded by Councillor Sageman that bylaws numbers 6 through 9 as circulated be taken as being read a third and a final time.
All in favor? That's carried as well. Thank you. Brings us to number 19, motion to adjourn. Our next meeting, regular meeting, will be held Thursday, April the 2nd, due to councillors attending Good Roads in Toronto. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Bean and Councillor Loosely seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Please join me with O Canada.
By Councillor Sageman that bylaws numbers 6 through 9 as circulated be taken as being read a